to give them this agreement that the president treats like the Magna Carta, but the Iranians treat it like it's toilet paper. The next president, one of us on this stage, will absolutely not honor that agreement and will destroy it.
Well, you know, another deal the media treated like the Magna Carta, the nuke deal with North Korea, which ended up, of course, with a nuclear North Korea. In fact, North Korea's little dictator just announced he's ready to use their nukes against us right now. Hi, everybody. I'm David Assen. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus with Mr. Steve Forbes, Rich Karlgaard, Elizabeth McDonald, Sabrina Schaefer, John Tamny, and Bruce Japsen. So, Steve, isn't North Korea exactly what you get when you reward bad behavior, just like we're doing with the Iranians?
Yes, it's such a terrible example, and that's why the Iranians stuck it out. North Korea has shown for 20 years that if you continuously violate agreements, go ahead with your nuclear program, you periodically shake down the West, including the United States, for tens of billions of dollars. And that's why a regime which has a dysfunctional economy, starved 3 million people to death in the 1990s, survives. And every other country, tin pot country around the world, is looking at this and saying, if I get nukes, I survive, I get power, even if my people starve.
Bruce, you really believe that rewarding the Iranians is going to stop them from building nukes?
Well, I don't really see it that way. I see we're trying to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons, and that's as simple as I could make it. I think that what we're doing is we're trying to ensure they don't, and there were several people on the Republican stage who said they wouldn't necessarily rip up the deal. If they violate the terms of the deal, then everything goes back the way it was. That's the way I look at it, and that's probably what would happen. Yeah.
All right. Well, Rich, we heard these assurances about this country, a rogue nation, not becoming nuclear, back in the mid-90s with Bill Clinton when he made the deal with North Korea. And again, we lavished money on the North Koreans. We were giving them stuff just like now we're giving the Iranians. This is what Bill Clinton said about their nuclear ambitions back in 1994. Take a listen.
North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected. The entire world will be safer as we slow the spread of nuclear weapons.
Sounds very similar, doesn't it, Rich?
Yeah, it does. You know, I'm reminded of the old saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for different results. You know, this is what we have going on with the Iranian nuclear deal. You know, they're going to cheat like crazy. They've cheated. They're going to continue to cheat. You know, this assumption that we're playing by some kind of civil rules here, you know, that we're going to send in investigators, you know, it just doesn't conform to reality.
But right up front, Sabrina, we're giving them all this money. By the way, Reuters had a story this week, 99 billion with a B dollars is going directly to a conglomerate that's controlled by the supreme leader. It's not even going to the government. It's going into the worst of the worst of that regime.
Right, David. And, you know, to Steve's point earlier, certainly I don't think North Korea, you know, feels as though we are any real threat, right? We have seemed feckless over the last 5 or 6 years. And to add to that, we've also had this sort of cartoonish image of their leader, of Kim Jong-un. We put this movie out, and they had the ability to shut it down last year, the interview. We simply haven't taken this country seriously. I think we sort of thought that 2007 deal was the end of it, and that we can sort of make fun of them when, in fact, he's a dangerous dictator.
And EMAC, rewarding bad behavior. The North Koreans were just as bad in many ways as the Iranians have been with terrorism, and we rewarded them, and look what we got.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And in fact, Colin Powell has said the exact same thing. Colin Powell is out saying the '94 deal with North Korea, boy, was that a real catastrophe. It had the same loopholes in it that the Iran deal has. You know, monitoring, you know, enforcement, and, you know, North Korea blew right through them. And you're right about the Khamenei's conglomerate, you know, basically getting big-time money from this Iran deal. And,
by the way, I said 99 billion. I think it's only 95 billion.
Yeah, whatever. But, you know, that conglomerate was built from seizing assets from religious minorities. So they're cheating all around.
What do you think, John?
Well, without defending North Korea or Iran for even a second, is it any surprise that they're doing what they're doing? In Libya, we saw their leader, their dictator, taken out because he lacked nukes. We saw Saddam taken out because he lacked nukes. all incentives point to getting them, because then the U.S. does treat you well, negotiates with you, sends you money.
All right. By the way, that was the Ayatollah on the phone. We hung up on the Ayatollah. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, John just made the point that when you reward bad behavior, you get more of it. And the dangerous thing around the world, David, is that countries like Argentina, South Africa, and others once had nuclear programs. They were persuaded not to do it, shut them down. All of those countries are looking to rev them up again. And when you have that kind of proliferation, it's just a matter of time before something dreadful happens.
And Bruce, again, why are we rewarding them right off the bat? I mean, again, they get the money, then they go off and do what they want to do. That's what the North Koreans did. Why are we sure that the Iranians aren't going to do exactly the same?
Well, I don't think that we were rewarding the Iranians right off the bat, because this agreement took 2 years to get, and if it's they violate it, we tear it up.
Sanctions are probably going, just to make a point, Bruce, sanctions are probably going to be lifted in October, and again, right away, the Iranians and the Ayatollah is going to get billions.
Okay, and if they violate the terms of the deal, then we go back to sanctions and we do whatever we have to do. We take other steps.
North Korea.
But I would. Well, listen, the other thing, too, we talked about safety in this debate, and setting aside Jeb Bush's comment about whether his brother kept us safe and setting aside 9/11. I mean, under Obama, the number of Americans dead of terrorism is 1/3 of what it was under Bush, and diplomacy, I think, is the way to go here.
So is Obama a better fighter of terrorism than Bush was, Emac?
Well, you know, Obama is doing a lot of drone strikes. Listen, you cannot equate terrorism under Bush with terrorism under Obama. I mean, there's different factions and different groups working historically through the years, starting decades before either president.
Because he created ISIS.
No, he didn't create ISIS. ISIS created themselves. Come on. So let's get back to the issue at hand. Are we safer given these lame deals that are being hammered out by our supposed diplomats with North Korea and Iran? The answer is no.
And Sabrina, again, it is kind of a knee-jerk reaction, no matter who's in power in the United States, to give money, whether they're good players or bad players. In fact, a lot of the North Korean deal, while it was Clinton whose face is in the front of that deal, it was started back with the first President Bush, too, the talkings with him. So should we just not talk with these guys, not talk about giving them stuff in order to get them to behave well? Because it doesn't work.
You know, right. I mean, I think foreign policy is sort of a fine line of diplomacy and the use of force. And I actually thought at the debate the other night, Carly Fiorina made sort of a good point, or sort of a good show of that you get respect by being forceful. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to have boots on the ground, but you can't sort of draw lines in the sand and then walk away from them. There is a combination of efforts that need to happen here. Yeah. And just signing an agreement back in 2007 is simply not sufficient. And they knew it and we knew it, but we've done nothing since.
But John, the point is, and you've mentioned this many times, is that giving people money, it sounds like a great thing to do. You give somebody money to have them operate the way we want them to operate. Usually doesn't work, does it?
It never works. People don't respect those who just give them money. And I just think it needs to be stressed that North Korea has our troops on its borders, and any wonder that maybe there's more of an incentive to do that? Is it any wonder that some of these Middle Eastern countries are getting nukes with us over there? There's a need to do that.
Steve, I think John brings up a great point. You can't buy respect, even if you're in the United States, correct?
You can't buy respect. And by the way, the reason we have troops in North Korea and the Korean Peninsula is precisely because North Korea invaded South Korea in 1950, and our troops there have kept the peace there since 1953.
Bingo. Coming up next, you see this huge number? Yes, it happens to match our debt. Well, it also matches how much more Bernie Sanders thinks we should be spending on government. We'll be talking about that coming up.